high school for 8 years. I taught mathematics. In 1998, I started a mountain bike club, and 4 students joined the club. Now I'm the director of a nonprofit organization that I founded called the NorCal High School Mountain Bike Racing League. And because of our work, there are now 600 high school boys and girls riding and racing bikes here in 2009. We fear that in 2010, there's going to be 1,000 of them. These students are members of over 50 high school teams at California high schools. Before teaching, I was a person that found myself with a mechanical engineering degree that I didn't want to use. I enjoyed the challenge of the studies and all the math, but I really didn't like any of the jobs I'd obtained. And so it became imperative that I find some other kind of work. I thought I'd try teaching, and math made the best sense. That had been my forte, and it seemed like that was something I could give back. And don't get me wrong, at that time I didn't really have a concept for giving back and really the rewards that would come with that. It was in 1997. There was a teacher shortage, and within a few months I went from being an in-classroom tutor to a substitute teacher to a full-on classroom teacher with an emergency credential. My first real break was that some other teacher had had a nervous breakdown, and so they brought me in. Somehow I turned the classroom around from that point on. And so from then, I could do no wrong at Berkeley High School. So I started that mountain bike club. If you'll indulge me, I would like to ask the crowd here a few questions. How many of you guys work with youth? All right, great. And how many of you work with high school kids? Cool. How many here are principals or administrators? How many of you rode bikes when you were a kid? All right. How many of you still ride bikes today? Fantastic. I was really curious to ask those questions because in 11 years of doing this work, this is actually the first time I'm speaking to a crowd that is not a group of devout bike racers. I imagine I've been invited here because we've managed to bring a new sport into high schools. It is a sport, right? Do I need to take another survey? I have a favorite story about Robert Redford's grandson. He was on the mountain bike team at his high school, and he was also on the tennis team. And the tennis coach didn't like that he was on the mountain bike team. And so he suggested to that boy that he choose between the two. And by the way, that mountain biking was not a real sport. And naturally, he quit the tennis team and continued on with mountain biking for some time. Cycling is a sport that happens to have some really cool benefits. You can use it to get to and from school or to see your girlfriend across town. You learn how to manage risk. You get more fit and healthy. You learn to appreciate the outdoors. And you learn to take care of your stuff or the consequences of not. You can ride your bike all your life. Are we in agreement that cycling is generally good for society? Good. All right. So, in my work, a couple of quick tips. Peers are the best recruiters. We are not. And always be dead honest with kids and parents. I had a daughter and her mother come into my classroom once. The daughter wanted to join the mountain bike team, and the mother wanted some reassurance. Was it dangerous? So I told her that the typical injuries were occasional bruises and scrapes. Now and then, someone will break a collarbone, and that's the worst we've seen. It doesn't outrule the outward possibility of something more catastrophic, like a broken neck or even death. And the mother didn't look sold. But you could tell that the daughter had made up her mind. She was going to join the mountain bike team. But I'm not here to sell the sport of cycling. It's certainly not for everyone. I think I'm mostly here to offer inspiration. Cycling was around for over 100 years before it made it into our schools at this scale. And I hope that offers inspiration for new ideas or gives folks here confidence to pursue the ones that you already have. I eventually received my credential. There were 3 things I got out of it. 1, I think that there's really only one book that you need to read outside of your specialty. 95% of being a great teacher is in the book called The First Days of School. I read it every year before I start. I read it every year before I started teaching. It's the best book to convey how we can communicate in all our talk, communication, and methods, high expectations. Secondly, in the words of our instructor at the credential program, Beverly Pally, an amazing teacher from Oakland Tech, said, "You have to divorce yourself from negativity." Every year I remember those words and realize how yet again that becomes a little bit harder. It's so easy to complain or get into a spat with somebody who's complaining. Lastly, at a small schools convention, I heard Bill Ayers say, "Good teaching is a revolutionary act." I believe that 100%. I think what this state expects from teachers is honestly inhumane. Unless you are very creative and you do things your own way. I'm not a fan of small schools. I prefer the relative anonymity of a large, chaotic public school. For a time, mine was totally chaotic. 5 principals in over as many years. I was hugely entertained by it all. But I only had one gripe. There were teachers who were coaches. They were getting out there, playing basketball and baseball, track and field, other things, and getting out of staff meetings. I had a mountain bike club. Fair was fair, so I moved practice days to the same days. And in short, I really started a mountain bike team to get out of our staff meetings. Here's what goes on. The typical mountain bike club has a 20-week season. They learn skills, they learn how to maintain their bikes, they learn how to ride in traffic, they learn good trail riding etiquette, and they get incredibly fit. They ride 3 times a week and partake in a 5-race series. The teams are coached by volunteers. We train based on a comprehensive curriculum, heavy on risk management, and positive coaching practices. Most kids ride 1,000 to 2,000 miles in a season, and the typical team has between a 3-to-1 and a 6-to-1 student-to-coach ratio. So there's actually about 200 adults who are also staying fit and having way too much fun. It really is amazing what you can do if you just focus on the positive. But we are still fighting our battles. While Marin County has a team at every public and private school, the San Jose district isn't yet having it. And I'm not exactly sure why. Generally, we are considered a club, like a chess club or a debate club. And here's the facts. All high school sports are governed by the California Interscholastic Federation. The CIF is an independent nonprofit organization that happens to have a historical monopoly on high school sports. As far as I know, there is nothing that mandates schools to recognize CIF sports rather than other sports. However, most athletic directors don't that. They will say, it's not a CIF sport. And that is a fact, but it's not a reason. We've created our own interscholastic federation this year. It's called the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. NICA does the same thing CIF does. We've created the most stringent coaching standards in the world of high school sports, 2 days of seminars, 16 hours of wilderness first aid, a background check, and other things as well. Now it's really just about education. Schools can do this. It's good for the kids. It doesn't cost the schools money. It has risks that are very comparable to football and cheerleading. We've been lucky, really. I think Lance Armstrong has really pulled the sport of cycling into the mainstream, and I'm not sure we'd be here without him. But nevertheless, it wasn't easy in the early days. So many hoops and so many roadblocks were put up. Meanwhile, there were success stories starting to percolate. Anthony, who quit smoking to be in better shape, and it was just barely going to school, but he started going to school more, and he obtained his high school degree. He credits his mountain biking coach for pushing him. Max, whose grades slid below the team's GPA requirement. The coach held him out of a race, and so his grades went up. He's now at Fort Lewis College with a mountain biking scholarship. Peter, who lost 30 pounds after joining his team in the 11th grade. He knew he wanted to change, but he needed a vehicle to make that personal transformation. Elena, who wandered between several high schools with the same results, straight Fs. Then she wandered into my classroom and joined the mountain bike team. Her father is convinced that mountain biking saved her life. She had severe ADD, and mountain biking gave her the momentum and the focus that carried her through high school. Elena is leading plays now. Tyler, who now works for the Mountain Bike League. Like so many kids in the league, he understands teamwork and has been my best employee to date. He just went part-time to pursue an MBA. We've also done some other progressive things like co-ed scoring, banning caffeine from competition, and we have the strictest code of conduct out on the trails. But again, starting new organizations, causing change, it's definitely not easy. So I have this mental exercise to offer. When I'm having my doubts, say before speaking in front of an administrator or several administrators, I imagine football does not exist, but that I've invented it, and I'm going to sell it. So here's how it goes. We're going to dress the kids in big, padded, gladiator-like uniforms. And they're going to wage a battle on a field made of artificial turf. And the ball is going to be shaped kind of like an egg made out of pig skin. And they're going to slam into each other with incredible force. Oh, and it's for boys, not girls. But we'll let the girls jump up and down on the sidelines in short skirts. I have no issues with football. I was a big fan growing up, and I have friends who play. It's great that kids and parents can choose to play. It's really a great symbol of freedom. And I want to end this talk by just simply considering the bicycle not just as a learning tool, not something to fear, but as another great symbol for American freedom. Thank you.